Roll call.
Yeah, if you could do roll call.
Director Sparrow,
Present.
Secretary Pratt, here, Vice President Smith, here, President Garvin,
Here.
and we're holding on Treasurer Treff.
And from there, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. If I could call on Vice President Smith to lead us in that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice President Smith. That brings us to the point of changes to the agenda. Calling any directors if they have any changes to the agenda, as well as any staff in the room if they have any changes to the agenda.
No changes here, sir.
Hearing none. We'll move on to consent agenda.
If there's anyone that wanted to make public comment, please sign in at the door.
Do we have meeting minutes in this packet?
No minutes in this packet, no.
So now we'll move on to public comment period. At this point in time, it's point of the meeting for the public to have 3 minutes to speak to anything that is not in litigation or pending litigation. And welcome anybody in the audience to come speak. Anybody in the audience that would like to speak during our public comment period? Hearing none. Anybody on Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to speak during our public comment period. Hearing none. I don't see anybody on the phone either via Zoom, so I will close our public comment period. And I would also note that Director Trapp has joined the meeting via Zoom. So that brings us to our business part of the meeting, and where we'll award the fire chief recruitment service agreement. It looks like we do have Randy from Western Fire Chiefs Association on Zoom, and potentially
Roy is on Zoom from special districts.
okay, and Roy's on from special districts. So with that, I'll open discussion and we can call on either one of them to present anything additional that you guys have, or
I don't know if we want to give Roy an opportunity to speak like we did for Randy last week.
yeah. Roy, are you able to turn on your mic and turn on your camera and give us a brief rundown of what special districts could do for us in this chief recruitment process?
You got me?
Yep,
Can
we
you
got
hear
you. We can hear you and see you.
Awesome. So special districts management recruitment services, basically like our brochure says, are stated to meet your needs. And this is done primarily as a benefit to special districts members, which is why it's not to exceed $6,000 cost. And so what special districts does is work with the district leaders hand in hand to design and implement an inclusive recruitment process that best fits the needs of the district. The amount of assistant depends on how involved you want SDAO. So it can be, we can outline a process that you run yourself to SDAO leading and facilitating the entire process. And so a not to exceed fee is, if our time is $2,000, that's what you're billed for. And if our time is $9,000, you're billed for $6,000. And so, like I said, this is done primarily as a benefit to the district members. And so that's why the fees aren't like what you see from other people.
Okay, appreciate that. Any questions from the board as far as with special districts and what they're offering? My question for you, Roy, would be, what are you guys currently working on in the state as far as chief recruitment and the capacity that you guys have for involvement? I know you mentioned it'll be kind of what we design and what we would like, but is there capacity concerns with what you currently have on your work plan?
Absolutely not. There's 6 fire consultants. You can use me as an example. I just finished 2 organizational assessments. And so I have a ending meeting in Almsville, first part of August, and I have nothing else scheduled for the rest of the year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for special districts? And then looks like Randy's on the line from Western Fire Chiefs Association. Randy, you gave us a pretty in-depth presentation last week. I guess my question for you would be is if you personally were involved in the Redmond process, and kind of what hurdles did you guys face to have to go back out for that process and not fill it originally?
Hi, folks. Thanks for having me back. And you also have Ann Razzo, who's our program director from Western Fire Chiefs. And actually, that's probably a good question for Ann. I was not involved in that one. So I'll let Ann field that one if you would.
Okay, thanks, Randy.
So the Redmond process, we originally recruited in 2018, and they had interest in us recruiting again this year, earlier this year. We found them an interim, and then after that, we did not recruit for a full-time fire chief. So I'm not sure if you're thinking of this year or 2018, but I believe in 2018, we found Chief Kemna the first round.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Of course.
Anybody else have questions for Western Fire Chiefs? Director Trapp, do you have any questions for either Roy or Randy from Western Fire Chiefs, or Ann?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. I had a question for SDAO about as far as the recruitment announcement, and what avenues they use for getting the word out about the chief's position.
We use through Western Fire Chiefs the announcements and the newsletter that goes out. We use whatever sources you want us to advertise at. And any other open source type fire service publications is what we use. And so primarily, again, with McMinnville Fire District, I'm betting, you have a fair chance of landing a candidate from inside of the state. And so hit those resources pretty hard.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions for FDO or Western Fire Chiefs? All right, hearing none, now would be a good time to share your thoughts. I'll just go down the dais, and we landed with Vice President Smith last, so we'll start with you this time.
Okay. I appreciate the proposal by Western Fire Chiefs, but I think with the amount of involvement we want to have in this process, it makes sense to do the SDAO process. It's a little more in our cost range as well, but considering how much work we want to be involved in, I think it makes more sense for us to do that.
Okay, Director Sparrow.
I'd like that Western Fire Chiefs allows candidates to kind of explore and look at McMinnville without having to, they can remain anonymous without having to put their name out there. But I don't know if that is made up by that increased cost.
Okay. Fair enough. Secretary Pratt.
The cost is a big issue for me. It's a huge difference between one and the other. I spoke to a person from Kaiser Fire Department who used SDAO to get their chief, and they were very pleased with the service they got and the assistance they had. Sounds like they got a good person out of the deal, so I'm kind of sold on SDAO.
Okay, and Treasurer Trapp, any thoughts on either one?
Yeah, I agree. As far as being responsible with the taxpayer dollars, I do think that SDAO has a pretty great product for as far as the price comparison is concerned. And I do agree with, I believe it was Randy, that most likely our chief is going to come from within the state of Oregon. Not to say that it couldn't be outside of the state of Oregon, but I don't know if we need that whole national scope for recruitment. So I agree. I think SDAO would be my choice as well.
Okay. And then I'll share my thoughts. I mean, I think they both bring a ton of value for what they both are offering respectively. I share Vice President Smith's thoughts that we do want to be involved in the process, and we have a lot of fire expertise among the selected board. If this was a city department recruitment, I think I would lean towards Western Fire Chiefs because they have that fire expertise that we wouldn't have on council. But being we're a fire district board with every one of us having a different amount of fire experience, I think SDAO is a better bang for the buck, and it allows us to design a process that we're comfortable with and we can keep local, as well as controlling costs and making sure we're stretching the taxpayer dollar as far as we can. So with that, I think I hear majority would like to move forward with SDAO, but at this time I would entertain a motion for one of these two organizations to be awarded the Fire Chief Recruitment Service Agreement.
I would make a motion that we authorize the board president to enter into an agreement with SDAO for fire chief recruitment services.
I'd second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously 5-0. I would like to thank Randy, Roy, and Ann for joining us this evening. We left last meeting completely undecided, and I appreciate the directors for taking time to review the packets, and I definitely appreciate what you guys do for the fire service generals. Thanks for running both of your organizations. We look forward to working with you soon, Roy.
Thank you very much.
All right. That brings us to item B, which is approve fire chief salary for recruitment posting. I'll turn that over to HR Director Hedges.
So as requested at the last meeting, we did some digging into what other districts are paying. So that's this chart you have in your packet here. At the bottom is the hiring range that we were able to pull from government jobs, listing the range for the different cities. So the top is districts, the bottom is cities. We included in there their overall budget, whether or not they provide ambulance service, their number of employees, and their call volume. I'm not sure if you want me to go into anything else, but happy to.
No, I think that this is a brief overview. This time I'd open it up for any questions. Treasurer Trapp, do you have any questions of the salary schedule you had in your email earlier today?
I don't have any questions, but I guess just reviewing it earlier, I noticed basically based on the size as far as population and call volume and all that, I think the low range of what we're offering should be a little bit higher as far as enticing for people to apply. But that's just my thought.
Okay.
President, can I make a comment?
Yeah, sure, Chief.
Most of the districts do not have a salary schedule for the chief. It is a contracted, but all of them are contracted positions. They just have a hiring range. And I think if the board were to focus on the hiring range, not the city schedule per se, because there really wouldn't be a schedule within the district. I mean, obviously, the board chose to do one that could, but most of them try and identify a hiring range. And so if you're looking for to try and narrow down what that looks like, you can slide on that scale or you can do whatever you'd like, but the board doesn't necessarily have to have a salary schedule for the chief.
Okay, so just to recap what Chief was sharing with us is not being a city department, we don't have to have a step schedule. We can hire within that range and then we can review that chief and determine merit raises and COLAs and deferred comp and all the other things that go into this type of position when you look at special districts. So we don't have to get hung up on a step schedule tonight. We don't have to identify a step schedule. We're really just trying to identify a hiring range. And we can work out the fine details of that contract with whoever that individual is during the process.
In that case, I'd agree with Director Kraft that low end should be brought up.
Should be brought up, okay?
And I would agree as well, and did a little bit of research the last couple of days and got this information this morning. It was really helpful, so thank you. And we don't really have a comparable that I can identify, but this is very helpful as far as seeing what other departments of similar size, call volume, and personnel size is currently doing. So yeah, I think we are all identifying, it sounds like the low end is probably too low. So what I would, if I may make a proposal, would propose is moving the low end up, and then adding the top end, adding about 2.5% to the top end, which would create a range of a minimum of 132 and a maximum of 176, 223. So the high end gets 2.5% increase and we move the low end closer. And what that will do at the low end is make sure that anyone that we hire is making at least as much or more than the AC positions. We don't have a disparity in that. Not that we would necessarily start at the basement of our pay range, but if we did, we would want to have that disparity. So.
Okay. Were you able to hear all that, Director Kraft?
I'm in agreement with Vice President there.
Okay.
I did.
How about you, sir? Oh.
I did note that as part of SDAO's contract, since we decided to go with them, is they do take an in-depth look at our benefit package and make sure it's up to date and comparable with other departments. So I know we want to land on something today, but obviously they'll let us know if we're off. So
I would agree.
Okay. Secretary Pratt, do you have any thoughts on the 132 to 176, closing the gap and raising the top end a little bit?
I agree with it completely.
Okay. Director Sparrow, good with that?
Yep.
All right. I don't know, did you make a motion or
I
no?
think I'd make a motion, yeah. I guess the motion would be that we modify the fire chief's salary range from its current to 132,000 minimum to a max of 176, 223.
All right, and a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. And we have a salary range for our chief recruitment process. All right, and that brings us to item number 2, which is resolution 2023-05, approving local government investment pool participation. I'll refer you to your packet and call on Chief Lyford to brief us on that.
Within your packet, there was a handout from LGIP describing their services and what the local government investment pool is. As a fire district, we are eligible and to participate in the program. I got a call from the tax office yesterday asking me what my LGIP account was so they could start making deposits. I said, I'm working on it as fast as we can get there. We will. But we do have to have a resolution authorizing us to enter into the local government investment pool, much like we have to for any of the other pool or groups that we participate with. So what you have before you is a resolution authorizing us to enter into the pool, applying for and participate in the pool. And we'll start the process for us to get into that process. Entertaining the questions.
All right, any questions about the LGIP participation? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2023-05, a resolution the McMinnville Fire District to participate in the local government investment pool.
I'd make a motion to approve the resolution 23.05 or -05, resolution of the fire district to participate in the local government investment pool.
Motion moved by Secretary Pratt, a second.
I would second that motion.
Second by Vice President Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously 5-0. That brings us to item D, resolution 2023-06, designation of a registered agent and registered office. I'll refer you to your packet and call on Chief Lyford to brief us on that.
Resolution 2326 is specific to a requirement from the Secretary of State's office. All special districts identify an address, which would be registered office, and an individual who would be the registered agent. After speaking with the president online, the resolution is built. Obviously, our mailing address at the fire station has the registered address or the registered office, and board president Adam Garvin as a registered agent for the organization. Ultimately, it's for state correspondence and state point of contact and those types of things for the address and the name of the individual. Once we have a registered agent and a registered office, it's a simple process to change a registered agent. It's just an application process. The valid application changes. We have to have the resolution for the initial one.
Thank you, Chief. We'll now open discussion for resolution 2023-06. Any questions for the chief? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
We could update the third whereas it says registered office must be accomplished by resolution.
In the resolution itself.
Important or not, yeah. The third whereas. Yeah, well, right now it says office must be.
Thank you.
You don't like mud? All right, I will entertain a motion for the amended spelling of our resolution 2023-06.
I make that motion.
A motion made by Director Sparrow, a second.
Second it.
Second by Vice President Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Signify by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously 5-0. That now brings us to item E, which will be our fire district branding committee appointment. I'll refer you to your packet and call on Chief Lyford to brief us on this.
Well, with the election and the successful election, we are no longer the McMinnville Fire Department. We are now the McMinnville Fire District, and we have to buy. We have to decide on what the new fire district will be and how we'll represent ourselves in the world. And the concept is to create a committee to start working on that movement, whether it's badges and logos and apparatus and anything that we do as an organization on how we brand. We'll be coming up with a website. We'll want that committee involved in the website design. So there's a lot of things coming down the pipe that we want to get our brand out there and get our message out there. And this would be a starting point for the organization.
All right, any discussion?
Question for clarity. How's that committee made up? So
So that's up to us.
Okay.
I would encourage broad participation throughout the district. So a union representative, a volunteer representative, no more than 2 members of this board, an admin representative, and make sure that everybody's included in that process. And then I would also like to entertain the idea of putting out some sort of logo design to the community as well. Whether we do that through the schools and let's see if anybody can draw something up that they like and that we like, or if we just send it to a design team. Obviously, you go out to the community for it, it's going to slow down that process, but the community is what created this. So I think at least giving them the opportunity to engage, whether that's an open house here at the station with our final 3 or 4 designs and let them do a post-it note exercise and seeing what's popular. I don't think that's just doing it unilaterally as a board is the right move.
thank you for the clarity, and I like the idea of community involvement.
Linfield has an excellent art program too. Good resource to tap into for some extra credit for some.
Noted.
Are there time restraints that are being placed upon us? I mean, is the city allowing us to keep current logos and patches and stuff?
So our
Forms or?
Our district logo is this awesome 1995 clip art that we have on the top of our Hey. The McMinnville Fire Department logo. I mean, technically, we currently are in a 6-month IGA with McMinnville Fire Department, so at least through that window, there's nothing to push us ahead other than getting our own logos so we can order uniforms for our staff and our volunteers and start getting our brand out there. And it takes, from my experience with branding, it takes time. It's not a 2 or 3 week process. So if we start it now, we're probably still going to be ending somewhere around the first of the year.
So someone in their infinite wisdom, not me, has started buying all of our uniform T-shirts to say McMinnville Fire, not department. So those will carry on and cross over, so there won't be an added expense to deal with that. And I believe it was either Chief Hannafin or Chief Law that were engaged in that dialogue. The one component that we would need to change are the patches on the uniforms. So that would be the only issue that we'd have to change on the uniforms. Everything else is.
And logos on vehicles.
And then we have, the vehicles, we have a hodgepodge of, through the years, gold leaf or not gold leaf and or McMinnville Fire or McMinnville Fire and Rescue, or McMinnville Fire Department. So there's a variety of, so there'd have to be some cleanup done on
So we all have to show up to a board meeting with a heat gun and a eraser wheel.
Work session.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the size of a committee? Do you guys want a committee bigger than that? Obviously, there could be subcommittees could spin off that, but I think if you really want to get things done, you don't want a committee that's too big. Otherwise, you get bogged down in the weeds. Would be my thoughts. Director Traff, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'll piggyback off of what you just said. I feel like if you get too many people involved, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. So I like the involvement from all these different areas, and I like the community involvement. They're definitely, I think we need a timeline established before we even, as soon as we get this going, basically, so that we have focus, right, on an end goal.
Okay, my question I would pose to the board is, do you want a community member at large on the committee, or do you want to go to the community for engagement after you have designs?
I like the idea of going to the community after we have designs. We could have several to offer.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree. Going to the community after, letting the paid staff and volunteers have a majority to say.
okay. And you in agreement with that, Director Kraft? Okay. So I think tonight would be landing on the 1 or 2 board members we want on that committee. And then obviously interacting with the union, the volunteers, and admin on who they individually choose. And the volunteers just had drill last night, so they have their business meeting next week and could hopefully get this on the agenda to get their appointment. And I'm not sure the union's meeting schedule, but I think we could probably have our committee formed here in the next week to 2 weeks, and then that committee could bring back a work plan to the board and figure out what their time frame is.
We can add the committee in the section 9 understanding reports for each meeting that we have. So
Yeah. Does anybody on the board have an interest in the branding committee?
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Okay,
I have no design skills, so.
I would have interest.
Okay,
I know, Garvin, that you're pretty privy with all that stuff as well, though. So
Smitty, do you have any interest, or?
I'd like to take part in planning the community involvement.
Okay.
Could do that role. I'm thinking maybe an open house, have a community, kind of be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But designing the logo, that kind of thing, I'll leave that to you guys.
And not trying to accelerate any work plans, but we do have a pancake feed on the horizon. So with that, we have Director Traft, myself, and Director Sparrow of interest in the branding committee. Anybody like to make a motion to appoint 2 of us?
I'd make a motion to appoint you and Director Trapp on the committee.
Okay, so Director Sparrow made a motion to appoint Treasurer Traft and President Garvin to the branding committee, along with the other open positions we outlined. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously 5-0. All right, so that brings us to item F, city services for the second half of fiscal year 24. And on Fire Chief Lyford, and refer your packet for the memo regarding that.
So we have a variety of services that the city is under contract with currently, that the district is under contract currently with the city. A large part of that is our emergency services and all the personnel costs associated with providing emergency responses and running the district. But also we have under the current contract for 6 months, human resources support, IS support, administrative support, and finance support. The finance support is the most critical component that we need to address as soon as possible because of timing of the contract that is 6 months and timing of establishing a new financial process for the district. In order to be prepared for a January 1 if we choose to continue to use the city to do financial services for January 1, I put several options in here and I'll try and work through them. But if we choose to use the city to continue with financial services, accounting and payroll, and those types of things from January to July, we will have to start now to build out the existing software system that the city has to add another agency in that system, add accounts and add vendors, add personnel over and transfer them over and do the work to build the software program to do that. So there's that is one option. And you could continue to use the city past that point if you chose to. Another option is to go out and get an RFP for a different software provider for the district to purchase, implement the software provider, and then hire an accountant or an accounting person to manage that software program for the district. That's an option, but given our time frame where we're at right now with an RFP process for the purchase of a new software program, the build out of the new software program, I don't know that we could make the deadline for the January 1 cutover. It'd be very, very difficult to do that. The other option, and then when I say software program, I mean a larger, more robust software program that can handle a variety of different accounting methods. The other option, though, is if the district wanted to move away from the city by January 1, would to use a more simple accounting software program like QuickBooks and hire a contract accountant to set it up, get it ready to run, and be ready to go by January 1st. And that option we could have up and running by January 1st. There are districts our size that use, there are districts on that list that use QuickBooks. There are districts on that use more robust software programs. So that is as an option also as a mechanism of getting up and running, and that we could do in the time frame that we needed to do it. But one of the challenges we have is the decision we have to make as we move forward would be to if we decide to separate from the city, the recommendation of both the city finance department and most of our counterparts out in the world is that we do contract for payroll services outside, not keep that in-house. So regardless of the decision that we move forward, and regardless of the decision moving forward, we're going to have to run a process to identify a payroll provider that can manage our payroll system. So that would be the two components of moving away from the city. We're gonna need to get a payroll provider in to do payroll. And we need to get the accounting software and have someone that can manage the accounting software. And so as I laid down those options there, one was stay with the city and allow them to set up the program and be ready to go for the next 6 months. And then during that time frame, we could be prepared to do something bigger and more robust and plan for a cut over at the end of the fiscal year. If we stayed with the city and did do something for that first 6 months, we wouldn't have to have a separate accountant, auditor. The city auditor could audit both books. If we separate from the city, we'll need to have our own auditor and pay for our own audit at the end of the process. We're gonna end up having to get an auditor anyway, one way or another, eventually. So all options except for staying with the city require us to find a mechanism to get payroll taken care of, and there's a lot of folks out there, so we can do that. That is something that's doable within the time frame that we have. And then the other options that we have out there, I don't think we can really get up a robust program up and running by January 1. And I'm just trying to be honest with you. We've got a lot of irons in the fire, and we're doing a lot of juggling with a lot of different things. So I wouldn't suggest that we move in that direction. So, but between the two options of getting a simpler accounting software program, having an accountant set it up for us, and hiring a payroll company to do it is one of the options to separate, and the other viable option is to stay with the city for the next 6 months.
Okay.
I hope I explained that okay. I mean, there's a lot of different components, but.
Yeah, Vice President Smith has a question.
So if we, are you aware of a current provider or current agency that uses QuickBooks and uses a contracted payroll provider?
Yeah.
Okay. Are they locally, or is there someone we could reach out to them and see how it works for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I do. I'm just curious, do we have a figure as far as cost for contracting through the city if we stay with them?
So what we have in our budget is $160,000 for financial support throughout the year. That's the administrative costs of the city. What we don't have is how much they would charge us to piggyback on their finance system. And it would, I'm assuming it would be some proportional share,
And that's based on the fiscal year.
and that's based on the fiscal year.
So that 160 figure, is that from now till the first of the year, or is that for till July?
160 that we have budgeted for is spread out throughout, so 80 for the first half and 80 for the second.
Okay.
And other additional costs from the city would just be the software licensing, or there would also be some hourly data entry?
So we will get charged for the hourly data entry, but I believe that was programmed into the 80,000.
Okay.
The estimates for the setup. They anticipated the setup to have to happen.
Any other questions or discussion?
Just that I'm, if I might, feeling like that we could be into a time crunch here. I see that too. I'm feeling that a little bit. Think about where we are. We're into August. And it's just gonna go by fast. So the question I have is, if we, what is our contingency if we can't get these things done? We're trying to get it done by the end of the year. Do we just get together sometime in November, December and realize that we need to go with a plan B? And what would that be?
I don't think that the city, if we tell the city that we're not going to be interested in them moving forward, I don't think they're gonna, because they are holding projects right now, waiting for us to make a decision on this. Because they're geared up and spooled up right now, and they have a lot of other work on their plate besides the transition also. So I think there is no plan B if we choose another option. I think we choose the option and we make sure it happens. Or we stay with the city.
So to build on that, option 3 is the QuickBooks option with the accounting firm. What have we done as far as back end research on availability of accounting firms? And
There are some folks that would be interested in that type of an option for us.
they have capacity?
Yes.
And do we know if
We have two of our employees currently are doing some of the work for finance. Donna is administering the A&P side of the house, and Jenny's doing the accounts receivable side of the house. So that work is already being done. We're doing it in the city system. We would just be doing it on the other side. What we don't have is the accountant on the backside working with the general ledger and making sure everything is lined up and balancing the books and cutting the checks. That's the work that we don't have.
and when staff reached out or you reach out to the accountants, did they give you an hourly rate, or kind of how far we can get on an $80,000 budget with them?
They did give us an hourly rate. I'd rather not bring it up.
Yeah.
In the meeting, because we may have other folks that are interested in that. I don't want to.
Okay. I kind of rest my questions. I mean, I personally feel, the voters voted in an independent district, and if we can achieve independence quicker, I think that's what the voters asked us to do.
I think it's like a viable option.
And I do think it's a tall order and has a sharper bell curve of what we need to get done between now and, Jan 1 versus the comfortable option of buying another 6 months with the city. But I personally would like to explore option 3 and have, whether we need to do that in an executive session with Truman for costs wise, but that's where I'd be leaning. I don't know if I could land on in the night without knowing that full cost analysis, but That's where I'd personally be. And then, with that option 3, by the end of this fiscal year, July, we'd want to be out for an RFP for actual software, and, the QuickBooks thing is kind of a temporary, yeah.
One of the, I apologize if my partner here that reminded me that one of the in option 3 with doing it ourselves was bring on an accountant person to manage the accounting on the backside. So there is that component also. We can use the contract accountant to get set up and get us running, and we can stay with that person. But at the end of the day, if we're going to get payroll in-house and get it done, and then we have to hire an accountant that can do the payroll. If we're going to farm it out, we still need to bring in an accountant, or find out if the contract accountant is working fine and we don't need to, but we have options at that point.
Okay.
But if we do need to, we will need to bring in either a contract accountant or an accountant
In-house.
to come in-house.
Okay. Any other discussion on options 1 through 4?
I just have a question. When does the city need an answer by if we're going to be contracting through them or not?
They wanted an answer last week.
That's, yeah, they are holding on a lot of other work to try and get their folks to be ready to do this. And if they don't need to do it, they need to get moving on that other work. So.
I agree with you, President Garvin, that we're heading in the right direction with option 3, at least exploring that and looking at what those costs would be.
So any other discussion on that?
It sounds like we'd have to hire an accountant probably right away to get.
Yes, I have a question.
There's a.
Okay, hold on a second, sir. We're deliberating among the board.
So we'd have to hire an accountant probably right away to get working on this stuff. I was wondering if we had budget for that already.
We'd have to contract with an accountant to do the work. Yes.
So our budget that we adopted 2 meetings ago
Mhm.
was that basically 80,000 is for that second half of the year, because we adopted the budget of 160K for
Mhm.
this type of work.
And part of that was set up work and build up of the.
Yeah. So that's where I was at with option 3, was that sounds like a viable option, but we don't know what the cost analysis is, or what other districts are, what exact districts are operating with that. And so I think if we had an executive session with our district attorney Truman and Director Hedges and the fire chief, I think we could probably land on if that's a viable option, or if we need an additional 6 months with the city.
We could reach out to other departments that are using similar setups.
We have some of that information already.
Yeah. So I think, and that would take us to our first meeting in August, which is the 10th, August 10th. Does that give you enough time, staff, to?
Oh, yes, yeah, I think, yes, we have some of the information, we don't have all of the information that you're asking for.
Yeah.
But we can have the rest of the information that you're asking for in time for that meeting. And I'll verify with the attorney. I don't know if that is a viable reason for an executive session, but we can definitely be prepared to discuss it in a meeting.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to make any decisions in that executive session. We'd have to come out as a board and land on the discussion. But if we wanted to, discuss financial numbers, I think we could probably do that.
Okay.
I'd have to look at the ORSs for special districts versus city, but because that is a little bit different. But either it's on our agenda or we're in executive session and then it comes out on our agenda, and we.
Either way,
Yeah.
Truman could advise.
That sound like a path forward for everybody?
Mhm.
So we'll table. What item number was that? We'll table item F. And bring that back at our August 10th meeting. with additional information about item number 3. Which brings us to item G, which is board policy 1 through 4 for review and approval.
I'm sorry, I'm Dylan. I might have been just delayed there on muting my phone there. Sorry to interrupt. And did I
Dylan,
catch you?
public
Okay, Brian?
comments not open right now. We had
Okay,
public comment
okay,
at the beginning of the meeting. So item G is board policy 1 through 4, review of board policies. Did anyone have any? I think try to take them one at a time. And call on Chief Wyford to brief us on board policies, and starting with board policy number 1, general.
We've taken the time to review a variety of departments' board policies and tried to find the best fit for the organization, and some of them are funding larger organizations and some of them are smaller organizations. These are all suggested policies, up to the board's decision. Most of these are how the board will do business and what the board actions and how they will process business and what the roles and responsibilities and as we go through the process. I did speak to Truman on the financial policy. We should have that here in the next week. So I'm hoping to have that on the 10th agenda. That would become part of the board policy packet also. But these are the ones that we knew we could work on and move forward and started the process. The board committed to try and work at 4 through 4 policies a meeting. So these are the first 4 in line, and that is how we move them through. The board policies on board policy 1 is general. You'll find that a lot of these board policies mimic ORS 478 and also special districts. A lot of the stuff is pulled from special districts. Because of the state law, because of the nature of the boards and the requirements of the board. So, for example, item 2 on board policy 1, I'm sorry, item 1 on board policy 1, that's mandated in law how this works. So it's just a copying of the state law into the board policy and that you're acknowledging it.
Thank you, Chief. At this time, I'll open that up for discussion on board policy number 1, and any questions of Chief about board policy or any amendments we want to make before we move forward. Hearing none, let's move on to board policy number 2, which is qualifications to serve on the board. Any questions or discussion on that one?
If you'll notice items 6 and 7, even if you pass the policy, we still have to pass an ordinance for that to be in effect.
And so for members of the audience and on Zoom, item 6 and 7 just states that members of the Volunteer Firefighters Association, and item 7 is an employee of the district couldn't actually be a board member as well. So it just establishes, that we don't have conflict of interest there. And I personally would be in favor of that. I don't know where the rest of the board is at on that, but I think, if our employee is the fire chief, then we need to be able to manage him and not have him trying to manage any member because they have employment or a volunteer position underneath him or one of his subordinates. So
I agree.
any questions on that, Director Trapp?
No questions. I guess just grammatical stuff. And I could be completely wrong with number 1 on board policy 2. No person will be eligible to be a board member who is not, I was thinking comma at the time of election or appointment, comma, and then continue the sentence, but that's just how I read it.
Okay. And since,
These are not ordinances or resolutions, so we can grammatically correct, clean that up, not a problem.
my other question for the board would be, do we want any sort of residency requirements? Like if you're gonna run for city council, you need to be a resident for a certain amount of time. I'm not sure how other special districts work, but do we want that, or if somebody, a resident on the filing deadline, they're eligible to run?
Resident in the district. Time that you. Did run.
All right, so
Number one.
You're not even eligible unless you're a resident or property owner in the district.
In there.
I mean, is property owner sufficient, or do you want to be a resident?
So 478 says that they shall be an elector or an owner within the district. So that's really not an option. Okay, you can own property or be a resident. The only part that's in effect is that is an option is the volunteers and the members.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right, any other modifications to board policy number 2? And it sounds like we're unanimous to bring those ordinance resolutions back for 6 and 7 at a future meeting. We're good to vote on all 4 of these
Yes, sir.
at once.
Oh, yeah, you can. Yep.
So board policy number 3 is officers of the board. Any questions? Discussion? Wordsmithing?
I guess I have, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, item number 2, it says the term of office for officers of the board shall be for 1 year. And then it says number 3, no member may serve more than 3 consecutive terms as president. So is that, even though it's a 4-year term on the board, you may only serve 3 of those 4 years as president, is that correct?
So every year, you're required to elect officers. Does that make sense? New, they might be the same people in the same positions, but you're required to hold the election every year.
I follow that for sure.
Okay, all right.
I'm just saying, I mean, we're going to be in there for potentially, right? Like Adam will be there for 4 years. So 3 of those years, he may be president, and 1, he will not be allowed president if it's been 3 consecutive. Is that correct?
That's the way I read it, Director Kraft, is that you can't have more than 3 consecutive years in the same position, but you could do 3 years, a year off, and do another 3 years if you got reelected to another 4-year term.
And that is not a requirement of the code. That 3 years is just that was from another organization that we put in there for conversation purposes.
Okay, what about the 1-year term? Is that a requirement to be
You hold
1 year?
election first meeting in July every required, yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like item number 3 could be removed if you'd like, Treasurer Kraft?
Yes, I would like to remove as far as the 3 consecutive terms.
The first sentence.
I love a treasurer that wants to serve in his whole term.
Hey, what?
Any other discussion for board policy number 3? And is any appetite to nix item number 3 on that?
The first sentence in 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No issue with that?
No.
Dan, anything to make this look better for English class?
I'd have to go through it a little more thorough.
Okay. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to board policy number 4. duties of the clerk of the board.
Do you have one of those on this one?
Okay. Go ahead.
I believe it should read the clerk of the board shall be the fire chief or other such person and not such other.
Any other modifications to board policy number 4, duties of the clerk of the board? All right. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adopt board policies 1 through 4 as amended. And I believe our clerk / chief made notes to each of those. We amended them.
I'd make a motion that we adopt board policies 1 through 4 as amended.
All right, entertain a motion for a second. So motion by Vice President Smith and second by Director Sparrow for board policies 1 through 4 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously as amended 5-0. Other business that'll take us to board committee and liaison reports. I think the only liaison we have right now is Director Traff, and I don't know if you've had a meeting yet for your current committee. Nope. All right.
I have not had a meeting yet. However, I'm going to be meeting with the volunteers regarding the LoSAP program. And we'll convey that, I'm sure, by our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. And board information reports? Anything from the board as far as information? All right, department reports. This time I'll call on local 3099 if anybody would in the crowd would like to represent them in public comment.
I only have one thing today, and that is to announce to all of you and to the public that this is going to be the first annual McMinnville firefighters as a whole paid and volunteer softball tournament to raise money for MDA. We'll be hosting that on September 9th. It's going to be an all-day tournament, 14 teams, I believe. 12. Okay. It won't completely replace Fill the Boot, but we're trying to expand into some other stuff to raise money for MDA like we traditionally have. For reference, last year, McMinnville firefighters as a whole was number 3 in the state for raising funds for Fill the Boot. First year out of COVID. So definitely a very good showing on that, and we are hoping to expand from there. Any questions?
No question. What's the mechanism for raising money in this?
The cost for getting into the tournament.
Okay.
At least right now. Yep.
And the location of the tournament?
At the softball fields at Joe Dancer Park. And I did have one question on the committee that you formed today on branding, yes. Who's the point of contact for that? Who's going to be the head person so that when I find a couple people to be on that, who would they reach out to?
For now, I'll take that responsibility since I'm on that committee, but we'll elect the chair of that committee once it's formed.
Okay, sounds good. That's all I have. Thanks.
And it looks like we have volunteer president, Mr. Pete Goodman in the crowd. If you'd like to make a statement.
So I missed the first meeting. We got a little busy that night, but I want to say nice to meet all of you. Currently we have 26 volunteers on the roster. And for the month of August, we have a couple of functions we're doing. National Night Outs next week. We'll have an engine and popcorn wagon there. We're doing Cruise McMinnville. We have a truck and a popcorn wagon being there. And we have a couple of volunteers that are working at the county fair, some shifts for the EMS trailer. And I think that's about all I had. Oh, how many people did you want for that branding committee?
One.
One?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you could always, have an alternate as well. Maybe that person can make it.
Okay. And I guess I could remind you all, our business meetings are always first Wednesday of the month at 8 p.m. And our drills are every Wednesday at 7. So I invite you to any of those if you'd like to come.
And the branding committee, is that something you think you could get on the business meeting?
I wrote that down for next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And that brings us to the fire chief's report.
One of the things that's going to be coming down the pipe that we need to move on relatively quickly is the secondary IGA with the city on the transfer of the personnel, the assets, the debt, and any other items that will be addressed within the transfer. As soon as Truman gets back from his vacation, and have him start coordinating it up, working with Walt, the city's attorney, and start looking at some draft information. I'd like to set up a meeting, if he's back, I believe he's back August 10th meeting. I'd like to set up a meeting with Truman, the board, to have some discussions on what the board direction would like to be on some of those items that are out there that are going to be outstanding. If that's okay with the board, we'll put that on our agenda for that meeting also.
That'd be our August 10th meeting. That'd be an executive session.
It will be, it would be an IGA agreement contract. Yep. I believe we can pull that one off.
Okay. Is that something we could do after a meeting, so it can be we can end, or do we need to come in earlier for that?
I don't believe we'll need to take any action. There'll be no formal action needed to be taken. It's more of it will be more of an update and a briefing on the IGA itself and the subject matters of the IGAs and what the board's thoughts are on that process as we start working towards negotiations.
Okay. We'll plan that executive session for the end of our meeting.
All right. And then the only other, you want to brief, Chief Law has just returned from Southern Oregon with the Yamhill County Task Force.
Good evening, board. Saturday evening, we got mobilized for conflagration at just outside of Bonanza. I was the task force leader from Yamhill County. We were the first conflagration team to go from Yamhill County. They left 2 o'clock Sunday morning. Just returned, 4 o'clock today. From that, we were the last team on fire to mobilize. As part of that team, there were 16 members on that team representing 8 fire departments across Yamhill County. So very successful deployment. We were praised from incident commander all the way through the command staff for the amount of work that the county put forth in that deployment. So yeah, we're back. So,
welcome back, and thank you for representing.
Thank you.
I can follow up on the conflagration, just so the board understands our practice, our current practice, given our staffing levels. We're very cautious about deploying members to the conflagrations that are going to impact our low staffing levels on the line. We do not want to cause any more workload issues that we already have on the line. So we weigh every conflagration as best we can and try and keep it to a minimum to impact the line staff as best we can. Once we get up to full staff, and then we'll obviously evaluate and look at that differently. But right now, it's because of the nature of our vacancies that we have. We want to be cautious and not cause more harm on the line.
And where are we at vacancy wise right now?
So we have 4 paramedic vacancies. We have 2 paramedics in the queue currently. One has a conditional offer. Another one should be arriving
moving within a couple weeks.
couple of weeks. And we also just received another resignation.
And are those dual role paramedic firefighter?
Paramedic firefighters, yes.
So 4 with maybe 1 more.
We received formal notice. We received formal notice today.
And then what about our firefighter EMTs? Do we have any vacancies on that?
Not currently.
And do we have any processes besides the 2?
We are gearing up for an EMT process. We have quite a few firefighter EMTs in the queue, but we are out of our list. So we want to get a process and get a list established. While we're under the city's auspice, we can get that list established, and then because we will have to get started on as a civil service organization. And right now, while we're a city entity, we want to try and get a list started so we can carry us into that startup process of the civil service organization.
Okay.
And we're going to re-advertise for paramedic firefighters also, so we can see if we can get additional applications in the door.
How long is are we currently in the window of the firefighter EMT, or are we about to open that process?
Well, we carry open continuous, but we're going to boost it with another application or another posting right now on Daily Dispatch, Western Chiefs Daily Dispatch. We also reboost it within National Testing Network, and it hit people that are already registered if they haven't signed up for McMinnville to advertise for that open.
Okay. Since you're here, Director Hedges, is it best to just leave something always continuously on there because it kind of ages and people just always see it? Or would it be better for us to
I think there's a mix
put
of
something up and then bring it off? And so it's like, oh, Mac's hiring, and it's Mac's always hiring.
I think most agencies right now are always hiring, so there's a little bit of both, right? Like you don't want somebody to go on there and think, oh, McMinnville's not hiring when we are. So I think it's good to have an active page, but when really trying to do a push to refresh it and repost on various websites instead of just on NTN. So a combination of both.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update, and hopefully those numbers will come down.
Garvin, just a point of clarity, if you could clear something up for me, going back to the IGA in our executive session. In trying to be transparent, I think we may want to hold it at the beginning of the meeting, executive session, and that way, even if we're not making decisions in there, we could still give a summary to the public about what we discussed in executive session. I know that we could still do that, holding it at the end, minutes or whatever from at the beginning of our next meeting, but just something to think about.
Yeah, so executive session, we can't ever make decisions in. But if we had something, like if there's a draft IGA that we're gonna vote on that night, then yeah. But I don't think we're gonna have a draft IGA. I think we're just getting briefed on content.
Yeah.
We could also make that a standing rule as a board if we wanted to always start executive sessions at the beginning of our meeting. My concern with that is the public never knows exactly when we're going to come out of executive session. So I'd rather have it either on the agenda with a line item or at the very end of the meeting, and that way we don't delay public comment. I've sat through various board meetings, school boards, county commission meetings back in the day. School boards always have their public comment at the very end. It's like you wait 3 hours and then you finally get to say something. So that's my personal thing for pulling them at the end, but I'm open to any ideas. I'd rather have them on as a line item in the agenda or at the very end, just to make sure the public, if they need to get home to cook dinner or whatever they need to do from a family
As
perspective.
long as we note it,
Yeah,
you know, at our next meeting that we held executive session and it was for this reason.
yeah, it'll have to be in the noticed in the agenda of what it is, and if we go off subject of what it's noted for, then any member of the press that's in there can legally report out of what that was, and we can be held accountable for
Thank you.
that. Any other questions about executive session, or is there any other appetite to move that up?
Sounds like voice of experience.
So that moves us, are you, fire chief report, or we
Yep, I'm good.
didn't want to cut you off. Correspondence. I know we've had some training opportunities. I don't know if anybody's gotten back to Donna or the chief on.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just one of them, I think.
Okay. I know you also, Director Pratt, brought up some SDAO networking opportunity at Chehalem golf course. Is that something you're still looking to proceed with?
Yeah, if you guys are interested in a golf tournament, sounds like it's probably a best ball kind of thing. They're opening up for directors and that sounds like fun. It's like the middle of September, I believe, so.
If anybody would like to participate in that, I would think you probably need to register for that rather soon and email the chief and get that taken care of.
Is the, this is just an open question. Have the board members, have each of you been starting to get email from SDAO?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I wanted to make sure that we had all the right stuff in the right place. Well, you need to update, yeah.
Any other informational items? All right, with that, just a point of clarity for those on Zoom and in the crowd. Public comments at the beginning of the meetings, and I didn't feel it would be fair to take public comment from a Zoom individual after I didn't take public comment out of our public comment window from a member of the audience. So that is why I silenced that Zoom member, and we'll try to continue to just have it be transparent and take public comment during the public comment period and not open it up for random injections. But as always, we're available for input in our email inboxes and our phone numbers, which I don't think we have public official phone numbers yet, but definitely reach out to us on our district website, which is currently still housed under the fire department tab on the city website. And we'll be getting an independent website here, hopefully in the next month or two. But definitely appreciate the engagement and happy to have either of those conversations offline or during our next public comment period at our next meeting, Thursday, August 10th at 6 p.m. here in Station 1. And with that, I'll adjourn our meeting at 7:19 p.m.